Okay, so my presentation is on a book review. The book's called The Brain Audit, and it's about why customers buy and why they don't. Um, so, just imagine you just got off a long flight and you're waiting for your bags to come out of the conveyor belt. When you got on the flight, you loaded 7 bags onto the plane. As you wait for the other passengers, you see one bag of yours, then the second, then the third. So, when do you leave the airport? So I guess the answer would be when you have all 7 bags, right? And customers behave in the same manner, in that the customer will wait for you to give them all the reasons to buy. If you leave even one of these bags out of your pitch, for example, your customer will tend to avoid making a decision. So you want to watch your customers because customers have similar general concerns, regardless if they're buying a $2 item or a $20,000 item. So what are these bags? I'm just going to go through them one by one. The first one is the problem. Second is solution. Third is target profile. And then we have the trigger, which isn't really one of the bags, but it moves you into the remaining 4. The fourth one is objections, testimonials, risk reversal, and your uniqueness. So what are these? I'm just going to go through them one by one. The problem typically gets our attention, or if it's a big enough problem, it should get your attention. Our brain is always looking or always on the lookout for the problem that we have, if it's a big enough problem. And while solutions may not always be attractive, a problem always gets our attention. The level of attention is based on distinct steps, and there's 4 steps to that. The first being recognizing the change, recognizing that the change is a problem worth looking at, and working out the severity of the problem. And last is working out the action needed to solve the problem. Customers' brains are crowded with problems. One thing you want to do is isolate the problem that you want to address to gain their attention, which may sound a little bit counterintuitive because you're isolating one very, very specific problem and versus sort of addressing problems on a broader perspective, but by doing so, you're going to get their attention. So, as an example, if you're selling, for example, allergy medicine, you can say, "Are you allergic to cats?" which is very, very specific, versus just something like "have allergies," which doesn't speak directly to that customer profile that has allergies to cats. So they're more likely to respond if it's specific. So the next bag is the solution. Solutions are just as important as the problem, and the solution needs to be introduced at the right time, which is after the problem. Solutions relieve pain, and basically the customer should see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Review communications, so that could be your marketing material, your sales pitch, your website, to ensure the problem comes first, followed by the solution. It's very common and quite natural to present the solution first, but you typically want to try to avoid this to ensure that your solution is compelling. So bring up the pain, then provide the solution. The solution does not equal your process. So at this point, your prospect is not interested at all in how you do things. The solution is suggested to address the problem directly. Your solution should be the opposite to the problem. There's no need or you shouldn't overthink the solution. For example, if it's raining outside, your solution should be like an umbrella or a raincoat. Something like a rain repellent plastic covering would be overthinking it. The next is your target profile. A target profile is just one person, which is a real person with a real name, a real address, a real phone number with real problems. Target a profile, which is a single person, rather than an audience. That helps to gain clarity in what you're wanting to do. So to create a profile, start with a demographic, choose a real person, speak to that person to find out what their specific problems are. Choose one of their problems, typically one that's their biggest problem usually, and then expand on it, and then get a real person to get feedback on that. The trigger grabs attention, so that could be like advertising piece or whatever you're using to convey your message. When faced with a trigger, the prospect has very little options but to respond very predictively, which is good for us. The brain should respond with curiosity, such as how do you do that, or what do you mean by that? Don't dilute the trigger. Diluting the trigger will often prompt responses like that's nice or that's interesting, basically losing the customer's interest. And one neat thing is to utilize what's called the roller coaster effect, which refers to bringing in problems at regular intervals. By injecting problems, the user stays focused as you deliver your product or service. So you kind of bring a problem up and bring in your solution, and then keep doing that to address all of their problems. Balancing problems and solutions is quite important as well, because too many problems equates to the customer feeling overwhelmed, and too many solutions gets the customer too relaxed. If they're too relaxed, often you lose like the urgency to buy as well, because they think they can do it anytime or it's really easy. And objections. Objections are quite common in sales. You'll probably get it with every single sales pitch, but they're great. It typically means that the sign is that the customer is interested and feels risks which need to be addressed or diffused. So those are typically what objections are, right? They want to get the solution to something. So if they're not putting out objections, it means they're just plainly not interested, or that problem is not a big enough problem that they need to a solution for. So bring up the objections. Avoid hiding them, which is quite common. You think like bringing an objection up might hurt your sales winning advantage, but actually if you bring them up and you diffuse them with a simple, prepared, and logical answer, then they'll get it. And it's nice that you brought it up instead of they did. So there's 3 objection categories, and that's perceptions, past experiences, and need to know. So as an example, let's say that you're looking to sign up to a yoga class. From a perception objection perspective, you may not think that you're fit enough or flexible enough, that you may have the wrong outfit, or that the class might be full of advanced students. So these are some perceptions that you may have. Your past experiences may be that you might not have gotten adequate training or attention the last time and injured yourself in the past. You might also have gotten too much attention and felt embarrassed. The need to know is, for example, what is the schedule of the class? What if you miss a class? How do you pay? What does it cost? Those sorts of things. So testimonials, the next bag, work in conjunction with objections. Understanding objections leads to an understanding of what the testimonials can help to diffuse. So testimonials are often hard to believe. I guess that's because, like, in today's day and age with paid sponsored reviews and testimonial bribery, buyers are becoming more and more skeptical. Something that the book brought up was something called a reverse testimonial, which I found quite interesting. A reverse testimonial is a testimonial written in a way that describes the before versus the after. The before is the key part of this, which focuses on how the customer was feeling before they made the purchase. So As an example of a reverse testimonial in the book, it said, you know that fancy looking restaurant with the valet service, which looks really overpriced? Well, we went there last night and had amazing food, and the bill was far less than we had expected. So if you just read like just the positive part of that, it may not be as believable, but once you throw in this strategy of structuring it in a reverse format, bringing up the your objections before and then providing your testimonial after that, it becomes a lot more believable and more real. So construct your testimonial. Constructing doesn't mean like make up your testimonial as it kind of sounds. Rather, you can use parameters to build and solicit a reverse testimonial. So there's ways to ask certain questions in advance to help pull out these befores before you get the afters. Good testimonials tell stories because they're real, believable, and remove objections. So yeah, I think all companies can really benefit from this approach. And so it doesn't always have to be super positive once you go on the testimonials page. I like that they can address some pain points and then talk about real users' experiences. Risk reversal. There's two kinds of risk reversal, the obvious kind and the hidden kind. So obvious risk reversal mitigates risks such as flaws in the product or service or suitability. So this is often addressed by a test. For example, if you were to drive a car, you don't know if it's a good fit for you or your lifestyle or has enough speed, for example, you can take it for a test drive. Another obvious risk reversal is like a money back guarantee or a warranty, which so many products and companies have these days. So those are definitely nice to have. The hidden ones remove one more barrier that could possibly be preventing your customers from buying. So an example of this is a company called Granite Rock. And this is what they put at the bottom of their invoices. So if you are not satisfied for any reason, don't pay us for it. Simply scratch out the line item, write a brief note about the problem, and return a copy of this invoice along with your check for the balance. So essentially, notice that this is not your typical money back policy. It removes the need to complain, submit forms, take photos, send products back. You just simply don't need to pay for it. So it's a nice sort of way to address a risk that people may be feeling before they make that decision. And the last one is uniqueness. Finding uniqueness is pretty tough. Instead of finding your uniqueness, it's easier to create your uniqueness. And to do so, you focus on the one thing you'd wish to improve in the life of your customers. And it's just one thing. That's one. It's important to remember that. Trying to address too many means it's not unique, right? So the three reasons to create uniqueness in your business or organization is to make your offering simple and understandable. It becomes a part of the DNA of your company. And your customers start to recognize that you're different, and so will the media and other avenues as well. And yeah, define your uniqueness, whether it's fresh or fast. That's not good enough. You need to expand and exactly know and convey what fresh is, what fast is to you. So one example was in the 1970s, there was no such thing as pizza delivery. A man named Tom Monaghan knew that this was a problem and that customers weren't wanting the best pizzas in the world, but that they were already hungry by the time they picked up the phone and called. So he figured out how to get pizza to his customers in 30 minutes or less. And that's when he came up with Domino's now historic slogan, in 30 minutes or it's free. So his uniqueness was not based on the pizza itself, but rather the speed of the pizza delivery. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. And the verdict, I found all of this quite helpful. It was a very easy read, not too long. There was cartoon illustrations helping to understand. But these are just some questions that I put together that I think any business can ask themselves or even their staff or their clients. Like, for example, what problems does your product or service solve? Who is your target profile and not audience? What are some of the triggers you can use to capture the attention of your target profile? A written down list of objections and simple responses can really help your sales team. Questions you could ask to prompt a reverse testimonial, and the order of those questions really make a big difference. And what makes your product or service unique. And that's it.